Grizz Nation, happy Sunday. You may look like it's a little deja vu because exactly 7 days ago, last Sunday, Chase was right on here. So Chase Hughes, thank you, back into a Grizz Game Day update. The best dressed media member for the Wizards, I hear, right?
That's right. Yeah. Hello again. Yeah. Kyle Kuzma bestowed that honor on me the other day, and I'm continuing to remind people of it.
I would too. Especially because it's Kuz. So
Right.
take your title. So we did play these two teams exactly 7 days ago, but this one was in Memphis. The Grizzlies won that one 103-97. Since then, the Wizards have won 3 in a row. They're on a roll. They're back home tonight. It is the second half of a back-to-back, though. Really tough, gritty game against Utah, who is good this year. Last night, they won that one. You had 6 guys, though, on the Wizards play 29 or more minutes. Does fatigue play a role tonight?
It could, for sure. I mean, it's always difficult when these guys play 2 games in 2 nights, but the 2 best players expected to play for the Wizards, Kyle Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis, are both dealing with, I don't know if you would call them injuries. In Kuzma's case, he was questionable for that game because he was sick. And people were speculating, was it because he showed up shirtless to both games? Both of the last 2 games, he's shown up with like a suit jacket and nothing under it. So maybe he caught a cold, but he played really well. And so did Kristaps Porzingis, who was questionable, or who actually missed the previous game and then was probable for this game with a groin strain. And he looked great too. But, you know, both of those situations, you wonder how those guys are going to react the day after. Especially with Bradley Beal continuing to miss time. He was in health and safety protocols and he's out for this game. So I will say that the depth really shone through for the Wizards in their win over the Jazz. They had a lot of guys contribute. So as long as they can carry that over into this game, and especially against a Grizzlies team that, you know, might be missing some of their best players, then maybe they can make it work.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should have led with this, but for the first time this season, Jaren Jackson Jr. has gone from out to doubtful, which is a big step in his return to playing. Again, it's doubtful that he plays today, which is a good doubtful, but then we also have 2 bad doubtfuls. That is John Morant and Desmond Bane are also doubtful today with injuries. And I even know after last week's game, Chase, Dylan Brooks was on the podium and they were like, okay, how do you feel like today's game went? Blah, blah, blah. They asked him about his defense and he was like, I'm already thinking about how I'm guarding Bradley Beal. So it's we're not going to get that matchup this year, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because those guys have had sort of an underrated rivalry the last few years, because Dylan Brooks is just a really good defender. And I think Bradley Beal has a lot of respect for him because of that. And Brooks has been very open about how he just studies film of Bradley Beal well in advance of those games. And as we know, in different conferences, they only play each other twice a year. So we're going to have to wait till next year for that. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I know Grizzlies fans, they get to watch John Morant and Desmond Bane every night. But this was a game that I think a lot of Wizards fans circled on the calendar because they wanted to go see John Morant in particular. He's one of the most exciting players in the game, in the sport. And I actually got tickets for my brothers to go see the game. So they're hoping that he plays, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, we hope he plays too, but we also hope that he's okay. No one wants injury
right.
to last longer. So the last time we played, you're talking about John, Des. John had 23 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Des had 28 points. But not massive games by the Wizards, stars. Kuz had 12 and 11. Porzingis had 10 points. It was Monte Morris who led the way with 18 points. But then again, we're talking about Porzingis, who also put up 31 points in 33 minutes yesterday. Coming into today, let's say if Ja, Des, and Jaren are all out, does it help a certain position, a certain guy shine tonight?
That's a good question because a lot of those guys are in the backcourt, of course. Normally I'd probably say that probably helps Bradley Beal because he doesn't have to have the defensive assignment.
Yeah.
I would say it probably helps Denny Avdia more than anybody because he would probably guard John Morant. We saw him guard him in the last game. I mean, they had a bunch of different guys.
And you called that, by the way.
I did, yeah. So, maybe Denny Avdia will get one night off this season because he's been guarding the best player on every team to this point. I mean, since we've talked, he was guarding Luka Doncic. I was already telling you about how he guarded James Harden and Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. So, I mean, it's been like a who's who of all-stars so far. So if John Morant's out, then I think that lightens the defensive load for Denny Avdia a little bit. But I think for all those guys, it's still going to be difficult because the Grizzlies just really gave them a lot of trouble with their physical defense. I know the Grizzlies are, they rank much better offensively than they do defensively, which is really a role reversal from what they used to be, right? When it was Mark Gasol and Mike Conley and those teams. But they're still a very physical team. I mean, they've got a lot of bruisers on that team that I think are a contrast of style from what the Wizards have. The Wizards have a lot of skilled players, not necessarily the sort of football player type builds. So they had some trouble with the Grizzlies, but I think regardless, Jaren Jackson didn't play in that game, so it's not going to get any easier for Kuzma and Porzingis. And certainly they're going to want to play a lot better than they did in that first matchup.
No, for sure, for sure. Now, team-wise, you mentioned that the Grizzlies are a good offensive team. They're 4th right now in the league. The Wizards are 27th. Like, there's some like crazy, let's say rebounds. The Grizzlies are 3rd. The Wizards are 13. Fast break points, it's 5-24. Second chance points, it's 2-20. But last game, Chase, the Wizards outscored them in the paint. They outscored them in second chance points, in bench points. Rui and Will combined for 27 points. These are all things that the Grizzlies have done so well this year that the Wizards did better last game. How are we going to see the Wizards like top that?
Well, I think the Wizards may have turned a corner offensively since they played the Grizzlies last. When they played the Mavericks on Thursday, they hit a season high 12 threes. And then they went against the Jazz, who were the number 1 scoring team in the league, and they beat them in a shootout. They scored 121 points and made a new season high 16 threes. They hadn't made more than 12 in a game before this year. And they went up against one of the best offenses and one of the best 3-point shooting teams, and they outdid them. So the Wizards have been the 27th offensive rating, as you mentioned. Like, I don't think that's indicative of their potential as an offense. Yeah, because they have a lot of guys who can score, and some players who just still haven't had their breakout game yet. Like Will Barton, I think, is sort of a sleeping giant on their bench. So I think last night against the Jazz,
well against the Grizzlies. I just said that he always plays well against the Grizzlies, and he did again. He was like the top bench scorer when he was here.
Yeah, so maybe it'll happen tonight. Maybe he'll break out. But last night we saw Corey Kispert shoot perfect from the field, 6 of 6, 4 of 4 from 3. He's been waiting to get going after starting the season, rehabbing an ankle injury. So the Wizards, the tide might be turning for them to have the offense that I think a lot of us expected them to have when they entered the year.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one no matter what. Like, it was a close game. It was just so exciting here. So I'm glad that I got to experience here. You're going to experience it tonight. My very last thing, give me let's just say Ja and Des and Jaren are out. Give me the one matchup that Grizzlies fans gotta like keep an eye on tonight.
I'll go with Brandon Clark versus Rui Hachimura.
Oh, and you did, I think you did you did Steven Porzingis last week, I think.
Yeah, well, Steven Adams he's obviously difficult, but Brandon Clark really hurt the Wizards last game off the bench, and Rui Hachimura has been one of the best bench players in the league so far this year.
And their college teammates.
And those guys played together in college at Gonzaga, so I'll go with them. But yeah, Adams Porzingis, that's another good one for sure.
No, I like a matchup off the bench. I love that. I think Brandon had 15 points or so off the bench last game. I think he was the leading scorer. And then Rui obviously had a really good game too. So that's a good one to look out for. And we love a little college rivalry. So Chase, you are always so great. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have fun tonight and good luck. Oh my God, the game starts at 5 tonight. This is so nice for us. We've been having all these West Coast late games. So 5 p.m. You can watch it on Bally Sports and Bally Sports Plus app. Chase, you're the best. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.